You're watching Moms Matter virtual episode at Ever Talk TV. I'm your host, Shireen Yadigar, and today I have Bryce Wild, who is a specialist in integrative and functional medicine. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me on. And I love your name, by the way. I got to say, I'm a name guy. My wife had the dibs on naming our first child, my son, Devin. She fell in love with that name on a television soap opera, I think. And I said, well, I have dibs on my daughter. And I ended up naming her Zaya. I love Maya, Jaya, all this Aya. But your name happens to remind me of what the Japanese affectionately refer to as sense of purpose, Shinrin Yoku. Right, which is that idea that without purpose, there's really not much to life.
Wow, that's beautiful. I had never heard that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And I agree with that. We all do. Without purpose, there is no point in all of this. And I think what you're doing is so interesting, especially now with everything going on in the world. But I wanted to make sure everyone watching knows what functional medicine is, integrative functional medicine. What is it?
Right. So we kind of had this evolution in nomenclature for what it is that I do. It kind of started off, well, let's give credit where credit is due. Traditional Chinese medicine has been in practice for millennia, tens of thousands of years. And a lot of what we do in natural medicine is adopting from the East. But we've moved even beyond that. And so I think a lot of your viewers, even yourself, would probably identify with the fact that we used to call this very much alternative medicine.
Right.
And that ultimately then evolved into complementary alternative to suggest that it blended nicely with conventional or Western, which is only about 150 years old. So very young on scene. But what functional medicine is, and I kind of toy around with the idea that it's really best medicine, it's blending best worlds, right? East with West, conventional with some perhaps not as well known, more unconventional. But the bottom line is all functional medicine is evidence-based. And there's different ranks of evidence. In my own personal clinical practice, I have no qualms in the right situation, at the right dose, for the right duration, with the right patient to use all sorts of conventional pharmacopoeia. I blend that with, herbs and diet in particular. Functional medicine is very hell-bent on establishing optimal diet. It starts there, and lifestyle, and then only using drugs and, other forms of pharmaceuticals, even nutraceuticals, which we'll talk about today, in the right situation. Really also appreciating science and technology, the latest in laboratory technology to identify what we've been, I think, giving lip service to a long time insofar as underlying cause. We really, like medical detectives, determine underlying cause from, again, leveraging the best in science and technology, and then addressing that using the power of what the body does best on its own. I mean, not many people know that your body actually makes its own antioxidants. I mean, we're told to eat more blueberries, and we're told to have a diet rich in, all of the colors of the rainbow for the very reason to sweep up this mess we call free radicals, right? That's what antioxidants are for. But not many people realize that we actually make a lot of these are on our own. Many of us don't make enough, and that's, of course, where a lot of challenges that we're faced with in this day and age, chronic diseases, tend to overwhelm us. Certainly in North America, we are a high-calorie but micronutrient-devoid diet. That is called the SAD diet, by the way, the standard American diet. It's a very sad diet.
Right. Well, I mean, the truth is our DNA, our genetic composition, we're all different. So whereas blueberries might really help me, they may not help you. So how do we really know what we need individually for our bodies to help detoxify and be at optimal health?
Well, I love that you say DNA. And, so that's a large part of what I do in functional medicine is to establish and identify and appreciate your individuality, your personalized state, your DNA. And I mean, it can't get more personalized than that. You're dealt the cards that mom and dad have dealt you. And now you have to learn as best you can to stay in optimal health, how to play with those cards. And here's the beautiful news. This is the most incredible news of the last decade. You can't alter or change your DNA, but you can modify genetic expression, certainly as long as you know what your DNA reveals. And we can do this. And you mentioned, detoxification. That is the pedestal of my practice. The ability to detoxify optimally. You're able to then better deal with ethereal toxins. I mean, let's face it, we're told to eat more fish, but there's mercury in our waterways. We're told to exercise more, but there's smog all around us. I mean, how do we manage with this, plethora of all these toxins? Well, first of all, you'll be happy to learn that you detoxify every second of every day. It's not just chemicals in the atmosphere, and it's not just what we ingest. Your body, just by virtue of living, breathing, eating, makes toxins. But many of us are overwhelmed with them. Many of us don't produce enough of the antioxidants that we need to deal with these toxins. And the number one, and that's what I want to talk to you about today, but number one most important antioxidant that your body makes is called glutathione. Some of us have heard of this before. It's in every cell of the body. Your brain needs it. Your liver needs it to detoxify. Before I get more into glutathione, though, as the master antioxidant, let me just tell you, this is a process, again, identifiably and mass controlled by DNA. And it's called the glutathione S transferase family of genes. And I talk to my patients about this all the time. Detoxifying is kind of like making dinner. With the scraps that are left over from the meal, you either put some in recycling, some in traditional trash, and some in the compost. And then it's got to go somewhere before hopefully the city picks it up. Those are 3 phases. Phase 1, 2, and 3, we refer to them as. Phase 1 is where you decide what bin that remnants is going to go into. Phase 2, that's where it goes perhaps in your house to the garage and it sits there. Phase 3, the city comes and picks it up. Glutathione is so incredibly important to get the trash from the bins out into the holding tank, into the garage, so that ultimately it gets out of your house. If that process isn't happening effectively and the city is not picking it up, your house is overwhelmed, like your body is overwhelmed with toxic debris. So now we want more glutathione. And everyone should supplement with glutathione beyond their multi, beyond their B complex, beyond their vitamin D, beyond their omega-3s. We should be all taking these things, probiotics. But glutathione is a standalone. And it is the most powerful, most important antioxidant. It'll help to manage hormones better, get you through perimenopause and menopause, help you to lose fat tissue. Toxins are stored up in fat tissue, and once you lose weight, by the way, you're also eliminating a lot more toxins during that phase. But this constant yo-yoing of gaining weight and losing it, that's also controlled by our detox pathways. It will give you more energy. It will make you more clear. It'll improve focus, attention, alertness, concentration. So we want more of it. But until now, we were supplementing with precursors, perhaps, antioxidants that give you the ability, maybe, science has, although debunked that, make more glutathione. And there's all kinds of products called liposomal glutathione and micellized glutathione. But guess what? None of them work much at all. In my clinic, if I see that your DNA says, we need to give this person much more glutathione, I will often put an intravenous needle in them and give them a push, right? Which is invasive. I mean, it's also very, very expensive, and it's time consuming. You got to drive to my clinic. All right. So now science has come up with something called Continual G. This is breaking. This is not me doing an infomercial. This is me just sharing with the world. This stuff here is the direct precursor. It contains something called glycine. It's not cysteine, it's not glycine, but glycine. And it's a powder. And you just mix it into water. And at the end of the day, as a direct precursor to glutathione, your body will ultimately make more. Now you're detoxifying better, you're throwing out the trash better, your mind is clear, you're losing weight, you're managing hormones. I can go on and on and on about how pumped and stoked I am about this stuff, but until now, we've never been able to give a supplemental form of glutathione. And so that's the latest in the world of function.
It's like the magic bullet. Where do we get that? How do we purchase that?
So it's referred to as Continual G by supplementing this on a regular basis. By the way, it'll also help. I'm a huge exercise advocate. I think that if we could put exercise into a pill, we would probably solve 80% of what ails us. And you're nodding, and I know you agree. But if we can recover faster and feel better after exercise, then it's going to warrant that next desire to exercise again. So that's another thing that Continual G does. It's called Continual G. And it goes to say, you can look it up at continualg.com and order it direct online.
Great. And this is something that you recommend for everyone to take daily?
every age, every stage, every day, daily. Myself, I somehow do the best. I've figured out my sort of ideal situation where after exercise, I take 2 of these little sachets. Again, it's just a powder that you mix up into water. It's a beautiful green color, lime flavored. I take this 2 after exercise and then 1 more in the evening. And there's something, by the way, I know my DNA. I've tested my genes. I've tested virtually everything you could possibly test in functional medicine about yourself.
Right.
My genes say that I'm a super detoxifier, right? So I'm just blessed with the abundance of genes that help me to manage throwing away the toxic waste. That's not the majority of the population. However, I also love my red wine.
Right.
And admittedly, on occasion, especially during these crazy times, that second glass, and this is not medical advice, don't recommend people do this, but the second glass can turn into a third. The next morning, I'm not necessarily hungover, but, I do feel there's a difference, a bit of a fogginess, a bit of an air of sort of, not that mental clarity that I would otherwise aspire to or desire. But after taking Continual G, boom, it's like literally gone. So I know that although I'm an ideal detoxifier by nature, by taking this stuff, I am amplifying that ability to throw out the trash. I know I'm managing my hormones, and I know I'm staying leaner than I otherwise would. And by the way, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, I am recovering after exercise a lot faster. It's all very noticeable.
This is incredible because, we're all searching for a way to detoxify. And you're saying, regardless of your genetic makeup, regardless of your DNA, this is really going to help all of us. And trust me, I'm doing those tequilas daily. I've got 2 tequilas down a day. And I feel it. I'm like, oh my God, my poor liver. But now I feel like I'm going to really start doing the Continual G, and it's going to help.
No matter how healthy you are, I promise you this will tack, if not many months, probably years on your life. It is breakthrough. Until now, we have not had supplemental glutathione, at least that works. If you're taking it orally, it's literally burning up in the stomach acids because this is an amino acid. So this is a tripeptide, 3 peptides, basically kind of like a very, very simple protein. You ingest it, your acids in your stomach blow it up. It just dissolves. It's not very well absorbed. If you inject it, sure, but again, it's super expensive. Studies also show that even the injections, glutathione outside of your cells doesn't really work. Continual G, which is this glycine, this IP, it's like this very intelligent structure, gets into your cells, and your cells know what to do with that. So the mitochondria, the storehouse of energy, this is ATP forming organelles. This is the currency of energy in our cells. This is the ability for your cells to make more of that ATP, to protect the mitochondria, and again, throw away the toxins. I want your viewers to take a peek also what Environmental Working Group is doing. They create a database, I'm not sure if you've heard of this, called Cosmetic Database. There are toxins in the cosmetics and the things that we put on our bodies that are altering our hormones, that are bunging up our livers, that are taking years off our life.
Right.
So stop. One of the best ways to deal with toxins is to avoid the exposure in the first place. But we all need that additional boost, and that's where you're going to get it from this Continual G. And this is what a daily dose looks like.
Amazing. So continualg.com is where we can purchase this. I'm really going to start. I'm going to go order this when we get off this interview. I think it's incredible. I'm so thankful. I want to speak to you for another hour, but unfortunately we're running out of time on the show, but I'm definitely going to have you back for part 2 about how we can continue to detoxify. And you wrote an amazing article for LA Mom Magazine. How well are you clearing your body of toxic trash? So everybody go to LAMomMagazine.com to read that article. It's really informative, really great. You're awesome, Bryce. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Speaking with you for 10 minutes, I think for everyone who's watching, it can really be life-changing.
Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you for joining us on Moms Matter at EverTalk TV, and we'll see you all next time.